We're doing it. I just want to let you know that we're also getting added persons to testify. So I'll be sending those to you. If there's quite a few of them, I'll send them to you in an email. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. We are good to go.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. This is State and Local Government Committee. It is March 29th. We are hearing 14 bills this morning and probably late into the afternoon today. First want to let everybody know and go through some formalities, I guess, for public hearings. The committee is assembled electronically today for the purposes of inviting public comment on legislation. Before we get started, I want to share some information related to the fact that this meeting is being conducted using an electronic format. The meeting is currently being live streamed on the committee's YouTube channel. That means that anyone who is a participant in the meeting via Zoom can be seen and also heard if their microphone is unmuted. People on the Zoom meeting waiting to testify cannot be seen or heard until they are called upon to speak. This meeting will be recorded and available to view on the committee's YouTube channel soon after the meeting has been concluded. In a moment, I will have committee members introduce themselves, but before I do, I will ask committee members to keep their mics muted until I call on you. If the name on your Zoom square is not the name you use to register to testify, it may be a bit of a challenge for us to identify you. So please make sure that the names are correct. Now we'll go around and introduce members of the committee, and I'm going to start with Senator Claxton and then go around.
Welcome. Good morning. My name is Ned Claxton, and I represent Senate District 20, which includes Auburn, Minot, Mechanic Falls, Poland, and New Gloucester.
Thank you, Senator Claxton. Representative Donna Dorr, good morning.
Good morning, Senator. I am Representative Donna Dorr. I represent a portion of Augusta.
Thank you. Representative Walter Reisman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Walter Reisman. I represent District 69, which is Bridgeton, Harrison, and Denmark.
Thank you. Senator Kimberly Rosen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Kimberly Rosen, Senate District 8. My district goes from Bradley, Brewer, Bucksport, Burlington, Castine, Clifton, Dedham, Eddington, Great Pond, Holden, Lincoln, Lowell, Orland, Orrington, Penobscot, and Verona Island. Thank you.
Representative Francis Head.
Good morning and thank you, Chairman. And my name is Frances Head. I live in Bethel and I represent District 117, 23 towns and townships in Oxford and Franklin counties.
Thank you. Representative Kathy Downs.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Kathy Downs. I represent District 130, which is Bucksport and Orrington. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Randall Greenwood. Good morning.
Good morning and thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Randy Greenwood. I represent House District 82, which is the towns of Litchfield, Monmouth, and my hometown of Wales in both Androscoggin and Kennebec counties.
Thank you. Representative William Toole.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. I'm Will Toole. I represent the Machias area, plus Lubec and Eastport, and cannot tell you how Route 9 is this morning, Senator Claxton, as I'm on my third week of being in Augusta straight. So that will have to wait until Easter Monday.
And Representative Mark Bryant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. I'm Mark Bryant. I represent House District 24, part of the town of Wyndham. Welcome.
Welcome. Representative Lynn Copeland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Lynn Copeland, and I'm honored to represent House District 14 in which is downtown and coastal Saco. And I did want to point out my background is of a hawk that was taken right down the road on at the Laurel Hill Cemetery here in Saco.
Very nice. Thank you. Representative Ann Matlack, my co-chair.
Good morning. Thank you, Senator Baldacci. My name is Ann Matlack. I represent House District 92, which includes the communities of Cushing, Thomaston, South Thomaston, St. George, Matinicus, Cree Haven, and the Muscle Ridge Islands.
Thank you. And I'm Joseph Baldacci. I represent Senate District 9, which is the city of Bangor and the town of Herman. So good morning. We will get started. Just a reminder to members of the committee about the use of the Zoom chat function. This function is not to be used for substantive discussions by anyone. You should know that the chat window can be viewed by any person taking part in this meeting as a participant. Participants include members of the committee, staff, and any members of the public during the time they've been promoted to participant for the purpose of providing testimony to the committee. All questions of persons testifying will be made through the chair. For each bill being heard today, I or my co-chair will call on sponsors and co-sponsors to speak first. We're going to actually, in this today, going to run through all the sponsors of all the bills first, and then go to co-sponsors, and then go to members of the public. I think that's the agreed upon format. And I did want to recognize Cheryl McGowan, our clerk. Cheryl, good morning. And Lynn Caswell, our analyst. Thank you. Good morning. So our first item, I see Representative Dillingham. Good morning. Hi.
Good morning.
Do you want to get, hold on for a second. So your bill is LD 131, an act to amend the governor's emergency powers. You have the floor, Representative Dillingham.
Thank you. Good morning, Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlack, and the esteemed members of the Joint Standing Committee on State and Local Government. I am Kathleen Dillingham, and I represent House District 72, which is comprised of the towns of Oxford, Otisfield, and Mechanic Falls. I come before you today to present LD 131, an act to amend the governor's emergency powers. This proposal before you is not about this governor or the current legislative body. It is about the balance between the executive and legislative branches and based upon the experiences over the last year. It is also not about specifically what this governor has done or not done, but whether it could have been done in collaboration with members of the legislature. The changes I am proposing are not to allow for any members of the legislative body to be obstructionists, but rather to allow the citizens' representatives to be participants in decisions that impact their lives. I sincerely and adamantly believe that individuals that choose to run for office do so to try and better the lives of the individuals they represent and all of Maine through legislative action. I believe it is with that desire that they would put aside any partisan differences and act quickly to ensure the health and safety of Mainers, just the members of the 129th legislature did last March. The statute 37B should not be used to allow one branch singular decision-making for an indefinite period of time, especially to the exclusion of the lawmaking body. With that said, turning to my bill, in Section 1, subsection 742, subsection 1, paragraph C, number 6, the language change I propose there is to encourage that when making decisions to implement restrictions, that it be done so with the smallest collection of individuals in mind, and then to increase that circle when needed. For example, looking to restrict the movements of individuals or closing of businesses in a hotspot and surrounding area versus the entire state. If the argument can be made that it is best to apply any said restrictions to the entire state, then it would require the approval of the majority of the Legislative Council. In this instance, I have chosen to use Legislative Council, where they are the elected leaders of the caucuses, and I can see where quick action may be needed. Legislative Council has the ability to vote via ballot. The use of Legislative Council is already granted under subsection 742, Part 2C, Declared Energy Emergencies. Next is the Section 2, number 8. Any business occupancy limitations that have a substantial impact would also need a majority vote of Legislative Council. I have not set a limit here on what would constitute substantial impact, but my intent is to require a larger conversation discussing limit restrictions, certainly below 50% or more, and also an understanding and sharing of the data used when making such a decision. Next, Section 3, number 9. I have removed the sale, dispensing, or transportation of alcoholic beverages from the language. This appears to be an antiquated notion, and I believe this is an area that we did not see an issue, and this removes the need to issue an executive order to allow. Section 4, number 12. This language may be more suited in a section by itself, but I have placed it here with a thought that mitigation of danger may constitute restrictions around a facility that has experienced an increase in numbers. If, say, a nursing home facility has experienced an increase, this would require 2/3 of the Legislative Council to approve the closing of, temporary or permanent, of surrounding businesses. I believe it is important that the data information be shared with members of the legislative body when decisions such as these are made that impact those they serve. Hopefully, the discussion includes the use of statistical data when setting a radius around any such areas. Moving on to section 5 and adding paragraph E, number 1. This language is to protect against eminent domain. I have added it because I did not see any existing protections here. I do not believe a pandemic should provide for invoking the taking of property. Number 2, this amends the current Legislative Council requirements in an energy emergency to mirror the 2/3 requirement added in number 2 under paragraph E in section 5. Section 6, subsection 742, subsection 2, paragraph C, number 2. I propose raising the threshold to 2/3 of the membership of Legislative Council. The other changes you see here in this section was a cleanup of language that was provided by the revisor's office. Section 7, subsection 743, subsection 2. This language will limit the executive's ability to limit a state of emergency to only 30 days without legislative approval. It also prevents the situation should the legislature not approve the extension of the state of emergency. The current state of emergency would end just to have the executive immediately issue another. It would require 30 days before another could be issued. It is my hope that with this language, it would require communication between both the majority and minority members of the legislature and the executive office. I know concern has already been expressed that the executive needs to move quickly when making these decisions. I would suspect that any need for extension was made before the final hour, and thus so would allow for communication between the branches in order to avoid any delays when it comes to the need of renewal if needed and warranted. These are the areas where I saw a need for change, and I now turn this proposal over to the committee, where I know you will do your due diligence and perhaps highlight areas that I missed or more finely tune my proposal. Just as I see the value in the multifaceted experience of the members of our citizen legislature when it comes to the vast areas we legislate, I see that same value and believe it can be applied when dealing with the breadth of areas impacted over this past year by the pandemic. We should be all hands on deck and all voices contributing to the service to the main people during times of uncertainty, struggle, pain, as well as recovery. Thank you for your time today, and I would appreciate your support in amending 37B in a bipartisan fashion, and I am happy to answer any questions that I can.
Thank you very much, Representative Dillingham. Any questions for Representative Dillingham? Seeing none, I want to thank Representative Dillingham.
Great, that was quick. Wonderful, thank you. Folks, have a great day.
Thank you. We're an efficient committee.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Have a nice day yourself. Thank you, Representative Dillingham. Okay, and I think that Senator Rosen, there you are. I think that, do we have anybody here speaking? No, we have to go through all the sponsors. So the next sponsor would be Senator Rosen in place of Senator Pouliot.
This will be testimony for LD 14.
Yeah, yes, that's correct. LD
Yes, please.
14. Yeah.
So you want that now?
Yes.
I happen to have it right here. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you. I appreciate that.
Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlack, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on State and Local Government. I am speaking for Senator Matt Pouliot, and he represents Senate District 15. The bill, I'm here to present LD 14, an act to require a 2/3 vote to extend a state of emergency. This bill would require a two-thirds vote of the legislature to permit the governor to extend a state of emergency beyond 30 days. We are currently under a state of emergency that first started in March of last year and has been extended in 1-month increments now 12 times. During this time period, the chief executive has been able to do what she wants with no communication or collaboration with the legislature. This legislation would create more of a balance of power between the legislative and executive branches. While the legislature already has the power to stop a state of emergency, it requires the majority to want to do so. Whether it be Republicans or Democrats that are in the majority, there should be a compulsory nature to any extension. This legislation would support the voices of all in the legislature and those whom they represent while ensuring the full legislature has a voice. It would require collaboration and a commitment to finding common ground to move forward with a state of emergency. I want to be clear, this is not an attempt to stop the current state of emergency. However, if we find ourselves in this position again in the future, we can make sure that the legislative branch and those that we represent have a voice and the power is not left solely with the executive branch. I encourage you to support this legislation. Thank you for your time, and I would be happy, I'm sure he would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Rosen. Are there any questions that members of the committee want to pose? Okay. Thank you, Senator Rosen. Seeing none. The next bill is LD 608. Representative Johansson, good morning.
Good morning, sir. Thank you.
You have the floor, sir.
Senate Chair Baldacci, House Chair Matlock, and distinguished members of the State and Local Government Committee, good morning. I am Representative Chris Johansson, representing House District 145, the 18 organized towns between Bridgewater and Sherman in southern Aroostook County. I can see you're all ready to jump in and pull the best parts of all 14 of these bills before you today and come up with a bill that would come out of this committee with a unanimous positive recommendation and send it to the chief executive for her enthusiastic endorsement. So I will be brief. Across this state, there are huge differences in demographics. What's good for Androscoggin is not always good for Aroostook. And who better than the local county commissioners and emergency management to know what's going on in their county? Let them be the lead in declaring an emergency or not. My bill, LD 608, is before you with a summary that speaks to the highlights of this obviously superior bill. And so without further ado, I will let you go to work with a big thank you for your time and effort.
Okay. Any questions for Representative Johansson? Okay, I don't see any, but thank you, Representative Johansson.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day.
You too. Let me just get back to our little, that was very efficient commentary. So I'm just looking. Our next bill is Representative Mickey Carmichael of Greenbush, LD 628, an act to protect businesses and civic and religious organizations from actions taken pursuant to an emergency declaration. Representative Carmichael, good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlock, and all members of the Joint Standing Committee on State and Local Government. I'm Representative Mickey Carmichael of House District 137, and I come before you today to present LD 628. My legislation mirrors a part of Representative Dillingham, so I'm not going to go into the details of the legislation, but I'm going to take a second to explain to you why I submitted it. Last December, I had the honor of joining you in being sworn into this great institution. As I took my seat for the very first time, I was given a legislator's handbook. Page 1, paragraph 1 states the following, and I quote, "A basic principle of a representative form of government is a co-equal status of the three branches of government, the legislative, the executive, and the judicial. Although the separation of powers among these branches is not absolute, the fundamental function of the legislative branch is to consider, debate, and establish public policy, provide the means and resources for implementation, and review its administration." Review its administration stuck with me. Last March, we was faced with a global pandemic. The governor, with overwhelming consent of this body, declared a state of emergency using emergency powers statutes in a way that's never been necessary before. While the actions of this body and the governor saved many citizens from this horrible virus, I believe the true cost and unintended consequences will come more and more evident as time goes on. One of these areas is the many people in recovery programs. Their battle starts with new every morning, and the framework of support is vital to daily sobriety. A constituent who is now 20 years sober reached out to me with this tragic example in her words. There's my friend Ken, who I picked up to go to meetings each day for 6 solid years. He really struggled with staying sober and has a habitual OUI offender. After completing a rehab program and making 12-step program part of his routine, he became gainfully employed and a contributing member of community, only to have that all end because of the lockdown. His job was suddenly gone. He was relegated to spending his day in a small apartment. There was no AA meetings to speak of, and he ultimately returned to the bottle. Last year, his sister called me to inform me Ken had been found dead. His body had been in that hot apartment for several days, and it was a horrible scene. I'm so saddened by my friend that my friend died in such a horrible, unnecessary death all alone. Or this story from a heartbroken mom. One of my 2 daughters became lost in this pandemic. I lived in fear for her life each and every day this started. As numbers of overdose victims continue to mount, having an adult child out there on the streets is a fear I can hardly describe. The uptick of illegal drugs in the state is monumental, as fentanyl is easily ordered through the mail. My daughter, who is beautiful and smart and capable and talented, is in the drug world. She's out there, but she's gone. As a parent, I'm terrified for every minute of every day. I can't even describe the profound effects of knowing your child is hurting to such an extent that she feels she has to shut out everyone who's ever loved her in favor of something that could very well kill her. I've been told that the therapeutic value of one alcoholic or addict sharing with another is unparalleled. This cannot be done on Zoom. Recovery groups not only empower people to save their own lives, but provide them tools to live a healthy, productive life. I was given this comparison by someone in recovery. As a diabetic who takes insulin daily, recovery is ongoing. If we don't treat our disease, the disease will treat us. Minus this vital support system, the problem begins to look like the solution. Our elderly have suffered as well. For them, living so secluded and isolated by the fear of contacting the virus has imprisoned them for over a year now. School kids are suffering from depression and anxiety and find themselves so desperate and hopeless that they even consider doing the unthinkable. I think back to the responsibility of the legislators as outlined in the handbook we received, review its administration. This is what we was elected to do. Now we have seen the emergency powers in action for over a year, and our most vulnerable citizens, the elderly, people battling addiction, precious school children, and so many more, expect us to review its administration. A state of emergency should be for a limited time, giving the chief executive the tools needed to respond appropriately. After this limited time to evaluate and react, the government must return to the people. Our Constitution demands it. We now have time to see where the flaws in our statute are, and that's our time to go to work. We can and must make the changes to the emergency powers so that we can maintain our representative form of government while protecting the great people of this state. I urge you to take the bills before you, come up with a piece of legislation that can come out of this committee with a unanimous out-to-pass vote. The people of Maine expect and deserve no less. Thank you, and I'd be happy to take any questions at this time.
Representative Carmichael, thank you. Any questions for Representative Carmichael? Representative Copeland?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a comment. I just wanted to thank Representative Carmichael for sharing his stories. Those were very impactful.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Agreed. And anyone else have any questions or comments for Representative Carmichael? Seeing none, Representative Carmichael, thank you for joining us today. We will now move on to Senator Lisa Kime. Good morning, Senator. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
So you have three bills, LD 729, LD 955, and LD 1039 that we're going to hear concurrently, because you're going to speak to all three of them at the same time, correct?
So I have four bills up today, and I was thinking I would speak to all four at once because that would save time. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I overlooked LD 1237. So all four of those. Okay, go ahead. You have the floor, Senator.
All right. Thank you so much. And again, good morning, Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlack, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on State and Local Government. I am Lisa Kime, and I'm proud to represent the citizens of Senate District 18, which includes Northern Oxford County and two communities in Androscoggin. I'm here today presenting several bills, and I apologize in advance for the length of my testimony, but combining them will, I believe, be more concise and save the committee some time. These bills are LD 729, an act to provide transparency regarding state contracts during a state of emergency. LD 955, an act to narrowly tailor emergency powers of the governor and other public officials. LD 1039, an act to safeguard the people's voice in a state of emergency. And LD 1237, an act to allow the governor to declare a limited state of emergency for federal aid purposes. Beginning with LD 729, this bill would require the governor to publish and make publicly available within 72 hours the complete terms and text of a contract that does not follow a competitive bidding process or other procedures as required by statute when the governor, acting under emergency powers, enters into a contract that bypasses established process. The goal of this bill is to maintain transparency in government, even in times of disruption and duress, when swift action may be necessary. The normal process of open proposals allows for competition and assures fair, effective, and economical use of public funds. While emergency powers under 37B allows for no-bid contracts to facilitate quick emergency response, it also removes the contractual process from public view and scrutiny. Though a copy of contract terms may eventually be requested and released, by requiring upfront publication, this bill would make certain that the important details of public contracts will not go unexamined, lost in the myriad of emergency responses and executive decisions. The second bill, LD 955, would limit emergency orders proclaimed by the governor that bind, curtail, or infringe the rights of private parties, requiring them to be narrowly tailored to serve a compelling health or safety purpose, and to be limited in duration and scope to reduce infringements on individual liberty. Please note that I have attached to my testimony a significantly amended version of this bill, which would include a change in title. In an attempt to define the current impact of emergency powers, I believe as it was originally drafted, the bill unintentionally expanded emergency powers. The amended version removes any reference to constitutional rights and all reference to other public officials. The amended version more clearly reflects the intention of this legislation. In addition, LD 955 gives a state court jurisdiction to hear a case that would challenge the legality of emergency orders and requires that the court, to the extent feasible, expedite consideration of the case. Inequality in the application or impact of emergency orders on analogous groups, situations, and circumstances may constitute one ground among others for a court to invalidate an emergency order or some of its applications, on the basis that it is not narrowly tailored to serve a compelling public health or safety purpose. The Supreme Court has many times upheld that a law infringing on a fundamental constitutional right must be narrowly tailored, using the least restrictive means to achieve its purpose. Even in times of duress, our liberty should be held as an unalienable right. One concern that some may have with this standard is that in a time of emergency, the governor doesn't have the luxury of thoughtful action. However, while the term narrowly tailored requires that orders are not overbroad, it does not require that orders be perfect. This point was made by Chief Justice Roberts in upholding a restriction on campaign speech in Williams-Yulee versus Florida Bar 2015. In his opinion, Roberts wrote, "The restriction must be narrowly tailored, but not perfectly tailored." With this qualification in mind, there is no reason the liberty of Maine people should not be safeguarded by the highest standard of strict scrutiny, and that our courts be swift in responding to grievances so that timely modifications of emergency orders can be made, allowing that the decision rendered alleviates harm. The third bill, LD 1039, similar to other bills presented today, would significantly change emergency powers regarding the termination of a state of emergency. And in doing so, assert the rightful role of the legislature, restoring balance in government. LD 1039 would remove the governor's authority to renew a state of emergency after 30 days and allows, upon request by the governor, a renewal of emergency declaration only if approved by a majority of the legislature. And this renewal process could be repeated indefinitely at 30-day intervals. If the state of emergency is terminated for any reason, the governor may not declare another state of emergency for the same or similar set of circumstances underlying the first. The bill also authorizes the legislature by 2/3 vote to terminate any specific order given by the governor. This is the same requirement as we have in law to override a veto. Seeking to address the practical issues of coordinating a legislative vote in a time of emergency, this bill adds a notice of 3 days for the legislature to convene to consider the governor's request, and would allow, during a state of emergency, the legislature to vote remotely by electronic or other means. Having now lived through a prolonged state of emergency, we can more clearly imagine other emergency scenarios under which 37B would apply. The bills presented today give us, as lawmakers, an opportunity to examine and improve the process. LD 1039 would require the legislature take a more active role during an emergency, instead of the currently assumed posture of irrelevant detachment. While this bill gives the governor an immediate 30-day window to address urgent and critical emergency issues, it forces our body, the voice of the people, to deliberate and consider the crisis at hand and to be engaged. When our emergency power laws were established, no legislator could have foreseen the lengthy public health battle we have undertaken. In laws written by our predecessors, assuming an emergency situation to be a temporary circumstance, the people's voice was inadvertently deemed non-essential. Nothing could be further from the intention of our forefathers when establishing our form of government, which is entirely based on the self-evident fact that all men are created equal, and that as capable individuals, it is our right to create the laws that we then agree to live by. An emergency does not render Maine people senseless or incapable of adequate understanding and appropriate action. The fourth and final bill I present today, LD 1237, allows the governor to declare a state of emergency for the sole purpose of requesting the President of the United States to declare a major disaster for part or all of Maine to make available federal aid. In current law, Title 37B, Section 742, there is already a limited state of emergency called an energy emergency proclamation that allows for a state of emergency without conferring broad emergency powers to the governor. LD 1237 would add another such type of emergency declaration, similarly limited in scope, a proclamation that states the emergency need for federal aid. In LD 1237, if the governor declares this type of emergency, the governor is prohibited, pursuant to the declaration, from using any emergency powers granted under a state of emergency declared because of a disaster or civil emergency, pursuant to Title 37B, Section 742, subsection 1. In closing, I would like to restate the imperative of the bills being presented today. The biggest issue with our current emergency powers law is that it silences an entire co-equal branch of government on a baseline assumption that Maine legislators, the voice of the people, have nothing of value to add in a state of emergency. This is a horrendously detrimental assumption and undermines the very foundation of our form of government. In times of prolonged battle in any emergency situation, the thoughtful deliberation of diverse perspectives from all walks of life and from every corner of our state is essential. No matter the efficacy of top-down mandates, without the people's alliance, no battle against an enemy, seen or unseen, can be victorious. It is our job as legislators to uphold our form of government and refuse to abdicate our constitutional roles in acquiescence to the chief executive and a group of unelected advisors. It is not the right of any governor to limit and define the methods we employ to rightfully represent the people of Maine. I implore you to consider what future emergencies may look like. If we do not create law that safeguards the people's voice, independent of the executive branch, we do a grave disservice to future Mainers. Thank you for your indulgence with this lengthy testimony and for your consideration of the important changes that are being proposed today. I am happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Senator. Any questions for Senator Kine? Representative Reisman? And then
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Matlack.
Just a quick question, Senator. Attached to your testimony is a drafted amendment. I assume that you're replacing the entire original LD 955 with this amendment. Is that correct?
That is correct. Thank you for asking.
Thank you.
Okay.
My question is not for Senator Kime. As soon as her testimony is complete, I have a question for the group.
Okay. Okay, Representative Reisman, you all set? Okay, Senator Kime, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Representative Matlack?
Yes, thank you very much. Representative Andrews is on the line and we've brought him in. He has lost his power up north and he has very little juice left in his cell phone. So I was wondering if we might squeeze him in now so that he can give his testimony.
Absolutely. Representative Andrews? Do we need to bring a generator out there?
It's very windy out in Western Maine today. I appreciate the indulgence.
Go right ahead, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlack, and esteemed members of the State and Local Government Committee. Thank you for having me. My name is John Andrews, and I represent the 73rd District in Western Maine. I'm here today to present my bill, LD 1220, an act to require a 2/3 vote of the legislature every 2 weeks to maintain a state of emergency declared by the governor. For over a year, we have lived under an emergency declaration that no one could have predicted. If they had, they never would have allowed for the chief executive's powers and decrees to go on in perpetuity. The last year has seen a devastating erosion of the separation of powers between the branches. Our system was never intended to function this way. It's an unsustainable pathway forward. We as legislators are the voice of our districts and ultimately the voice of our people. The people of District 73 have had enough. We do not consent to the rule of an all-powerful executive authority without any legislative oversight. We must rein in the governor's powers immediately and place stringent oversight over any state of emergency going forward for every future governor of our state. LD 1220 is the most rigorous of all the bills being heard today. Quite simply put, it gives Governor Mills the absolute shortest leash possible. LD 1220 requires a 2/3 vote of the legislature every 2 weeks to maintain an emergency declaration after the first 30 days. One of the unique features of this bill is that it allows for members to be polled on maintaining a state of emergency if the legislature is not in session. This aspect of the bill is vital to maintain the separation of powers and the role of legislative oversight and approval, even if the legislature is closed. Whether we are in the chamber or not, the people still have a voice and they must be acknowledged and heard. Government may only exist with consent of the governed. This much needed feature was lacking during the COVID-19 pandemic, and this committee has an opportunity to fix that with LD 1220. The ability to poll members from all over the state of Maine is something that is easily accomplished with 21st century technology. It is something that must be added to whatever type of sausage that this committee creates out of all the bills heard today. The voices of the people from all corners of this great state must be heard and acknowledged on such an important issue as maintaining a state of emergency, so that this disenfranchising and business crushing situation never happens again. I would please ask you to vote auto pass on LD 1220 to establish a 2/3 vote every 2 weeks after the first 30 days of a state of emergency, and to add the ability of members to be polled on that matter if the legislature is not in session. Thank you all for your time and your commitment to public service. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Andrews. Any questions for Representative Andrews? Seeing none, Representative Andrews, thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Representative Heidi Sampson, good morning. LD 980 is a resolution proposing, oh, I'm sorry. Is that the correct bill? No, hold on. An act to establish balance in the governor's emergency powers. Is that correct, Representative Sampson?
Correct. Thank you. Thank
Yep,
you, Senator Baldacci.
You have the floor.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Good morning, Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlack, and the esteemed members of the Committee on State and Local Government. I am Representative Heidi Sampson, serving the good people of House District 21, that's Alfred, Limerick, Shapley, Newfield, and Parsonsfield. I'm here to present LD 980, an act to establish balance in the governor's emergency powers. Legislative powers belong to the people exercised through representatives in the legislature. That's you and me, folks. You and I have an obligation and a duty to represent the people of this state. We all swear an oath to honor the Constitution of Maine and the United States Constitution. This is not a light matter. For a full year, we have been unable to effectively do our job. To that end, pure legislative power may not be delegated to the executive branch. Period. It is therefore our responsibility to restore and reestablish the defined separation of powers which have been lost this past year. To that end, I would like to outline the points this bill addresses. Number one, an emergency proclamation is limited to 7 days. Number two, to extend an emergency proclamation, the legislature must vote with a supermajority. Number three, a simple majority vote of the legislature will discontinue an emergency proclamation. Number four, the chief executive is prohibited from reissuing or renewing an emergency proclamation, issuing similar proclamations to one that has expired, or reissuing an emergency proclamation the legislature has discontinued during the time period of the state of emergency. Number five, this bill states that a violation by the chief executive of emergency powers is an impeachable offense. Additionally, this bill allows for debate to vote remotely or through some electronic means on the extension or discontinuation of a chief executive's emergency proclamation. The focus of emergency powers must be limited in duration for the purpose of reducing the scope of infringement of individuals' liberties.
This bill also encourages the state courts to expedite consideration of legal challenges and may invalidate or enjoin an emergency order. Finally, I am speaking to you, my fellow legislators. With over a dozen bills being heard today, all addressing the same topic of the governor's overreaching, unconstitutional, and unilateral actions over this past year, it is clear the people of Maine are deeply troubled. This imbalance in governing authority is of paramount concern to them. It is my hope you recognize and genuinely consider the weight of the information being raised today and look not just to this current chief executive, but to all future ones as well. No governor should have this type of unilateral power. We have a representative form of government. We can assure, and I ask that you would assure we preserve that. And thank you. And then I have a question to follow up after the questioning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Representative Sampson? Okay, seeing none, Representative Sampson, what's your question?
Yes, sir. I just literally moments before you called on me, received an email from a gentleman who would like to share testimony, and I'm asking you how you would like me to do that. I can read his testimony, but you tell me what's most appropriate and when you would like that to happen.
Sure. So it can be submitted electronically.
Correct. He's already done that, but he would like it to be read.
Okay, so the public what we're doing is going to have all the sponsors speak and then the co-sponsors and then the public. So it would have to be later in the day.
Okay, is there some format for me to get on a list to be able to read his testimony?
I think that Cheryl can accommodate that.
Okay, thank you.
Cheryl, can you turn your mute off? Thanks.
Representative Sampson, if you would send me your email information, I'll make sure I put everything down and let you know when that's going to happen.
Super. I'll do that. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Have a great day, folks.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Representative Bradstreet, good morning.
Good morning.
You are presenting for this public hearing LD 1019.
Yes, thank you.
An act to promote transparent emergency management. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlack, and distinguished members of the Committee on State and Local Government, good morning. I'm Representative Dick Bradstreet, and I represent House District 80, which is comprised of my hometown of Vassalboro, Windsor, Somerville, part of Augusta, and the unorganized territory of Hibbets Gore. I'm here today to present to you LD 1019, an act to promote transparent emergency management. For the past year, Maine has essentially had an authoritarian form of government, given the way the emergency powers has been handled by the chief executive. I understand that the pandemic has created an unprecedented challenge to our state and how we should address and perform the proper functions of governing. Our Constitution provides co-equal branches of government, but during this past year, the legislature has been excluded from its proper function of, among other things, the checks and balances inherent in a representative form of government. There have been no checks and there's been no balance. The people have effectively been without representation on matters that pertain to a myriad of matters affecting their rights and well-being. We need to take steps to ensure that the executive branch rightfully shares responsibility of governing with the legislative branch. As legislators, we have had no say in what decisions are being made that affect every citizen of the state of Maine. We have no idea what discussions are taking place, who is involved in these discussions, what information is used to make decisions, what information is being ignored in the process, and what are the deciding factors in making what are life-altering decisions for so many people who are essentially being kept in the dark by their government. I think it's always necessary to remember that here in America, it's not a case of government and its people, but the people and their government. We have not been operating according to this tenet. I'd like to point out that had we been involved, as we should have been in fulfilling our responsibility to represent our constituents, we may have been in substantial agreement with the decisions made by the administration. But we don't know if that's true because we have been excluded from the process. We're not able to tell our neighbors why their government is doing specific things because we don't know, and that is wrong. It is simply the decisions that have been made. It's not simply the decisions that have been made, but that the process of representative government has been violated. The proper functioning of government is never easy. Those of us who ran for office didn't expect that things would always go smoothly, but even though our constitutional obligations can be very unwieldy and difficult, they still must be done. The enactment of LD 1019 will give the legislature more say in how emergency proclamations are renewed, and therefore provide more transparency for the people to see how its government operates, even during times of the pandemic. To be candid about it, I'm not as concerned with simply the passage of this bill as I am with your careful consideration and positive action on the message that the similarly themed bills before you are being heard today. The state and local government has an opportunity to fix what needs to be fixed. I believe we're truly at a crossroads. Our system of balanced government has stood the test of time, but it is slowly eroding. It's tempting to let these things pass and hope that they will take care of themselves, but we must resist that temptation. It's time for the Maine state legislature to broaden its shoulders and restore it at once its proper role in governing the state of Maine. The process of representative government must be restored. Thank you. And I'd also like to add that last session, Labor Committee had 25 different workers' compensation bills that we worked hard to get that resolved onto one bill. And I have a lot of confidence that the state and local government could do the same with this situation. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative Bradstreet. I share that confidence. So, any questions for Representative Bradstreet? Seeing none. Thank you, Representative Bradstreet.
Okay, thank you for doing what you've done. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Fecto, you are presenting LD 1142, an act to prohibit the unequal restriction of essential businesses during a state of civil emergency. Good morning, and you have the floor.
Good morning, Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlack, and my colleagues on the Joint Standing Committee on State and Local Government. I am Justin Fecto, and I proudly represent House District 86, which consists of the western and northern portions of Augusta. I'm here to testify in support of LD 1142, an act to prohibit the unequal restriction of essential businesses during a state of civil emergency. My guess is we might have never seen these types of bills if teamwork and transparency were hallmark traits of this administration. This bill does two important things. Firstly, it states that any private business that employs a person in the state is an essential business. Secondly, it says any and all restrictions must be done in the same manner. As to the bill's first point, all people are essential, all work is essential, and providing for oneself and one's family is essential. While the products of all labor is perhaps not essential, the fruit of all labor is essential. Maine families on the wrong end of the governor's opinion were met with trying times none of us here can even imagine. All Maine businesses are essential to our success. As to the second point of this bill, which is the uneven restriction of business, one must look no further than the point I just referenced or to the ridiculous reopening checklist from the Department of Economic and Community Development. These insulting checklists created confusing, expensive, and uneven reopenings for our businesses. The worst part of it was the anonymous snitch line that followed, where the casual passerby could put a business in jeopardy for the assumption of breaking the rules. To nobody's surprise, many complaints were baseless, fraudulent, and/or ill-informed. Plain and simple, different businesses were being micromanaged differently by the DECD. Others, such as tattoo studios, were restricted from opening, while their industry peers could attempt to save themselves. Across the board health guidelines such as physical distancing, face coverings and barriers, and limits could have been communicated evenly to all businesses. That would have been a much more science-forward and even distribution of restrictions. All too often, these restrictions only embolden our large corporate multinationals with teams of lawyers and sprawling square footage. These large companies were allowed to get away with almost anything because they had and have the ability to fight back. All the while, our small businesses run by our neighbors were being micromanaged into closing and dumping their life savings in order to stay afloat. Don't even get me started when it comes to the last-minute reopening delays by our governor. But don't worry, they were told they could sell all that food to prisons at cost. That was sarcasm. Our small businesses, many of them run by women, veterans, and minorities.
Representative Fecto, please, if we could put aside the sarcasm and just focus on the issues. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We're easily feasted upon by their own state government. Thank you for your careful time and consideration.
Thank you. Any questions for Representative Fecto? Okay, Representative Fecto, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I see Representative Mike Lemelin. Is he here?
He is not in the waiting room.
Okay, he has a bill, I think. Why don't we go to Senator Rosen for LD 985? A resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution of Maine to require legislative approval of any state emergency lasting longer than 60 days. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am now speaking for Senator Trey Stewart. Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlack, and members of the Committee on State and Local Government. I am speaking for State Senator Trey Stewart, and he has the distinction of representing 51 communities in Aroostook and Penobscot counties. He's before you today to present testimony on LD 985, a resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution of Maine to require legislative approval of any state of emergency lasting longer than 60 days. I think it is fair to say that when the legislature decided to finish its work early last year, granting the governor with additional decision-making, nobody expected the current state of emergency to continue on for an entire year. The COVID-19 pandemic has been a dangerous and scary time. Declaring Maine in a state of emergency was undoubtedly the right thing to do last March. However, I am afraid that as the pandemic continued on, the legislative branch lost its seat at the table in regard to decisions on the best management for our state. Unlike some of the other bills before you, LD 985 would require legislative approval in order for any governor to extend a state of emergency beyond 60 days. I believe it is important that decisions, particularly those required during a pandemic or serious crisis, incorporate input from people across all parts of Maine, not just one person. This resolution will protect the legislative branch of government and ensure the people that voted to send you and me to Augusta on their behalf are able to participate in decisions regarding our state. Some may be concerned that this bill would eliminate a governor's ability to keep Maine in a state of emergency, putting the state at risk of state receiving federal funds. I would argue that this strengthens the process, though, and provides greater accountability between the separate branches of our state government. I thank you for your consideration of this proposal and would be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you
for
very
letting
much.
me present for Senator Stewart.
Let's see, any questions for Senator Rosen? Seeing none. Okay, well, this is gone. Oh, Senator Claxton. Yeah.
Yes, mine wasn't, thank you, Mr. Chair. My question wasn't for the senator. It was an offer to read the summary of LD 1137 into the record in the absence of Representative Lemelin, if that would be helpful.
Well, it would be, but why don't we try to get a hold of Representative Lemelin? Is there any way, Cheryl, that you could text him or email him?
I can try, yeah.
Or Representative Toole? Or Senator Rosen? Representative Toole, you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean, how about if, after Cheryl has reached out to him, if he comes in while other folks are speaking, that we slot him in whenever he gets in? I mean, I think
Sure, yeah, no, that's fine. I just wanted to at least give him
an
opportunity before we got to that second stage.
I'll see what I can do.
Okay.
Also, on several bills too, already.
Okay. Why don't we,
Would you like co-sponsors now?
I think that will be fine. Well, when Representative Lemelland's available, he can go to the front of the line. We can get him in to go over his bill.
All right, Representative Beckville is here as a co-sponsor on several bills.
Okay, Representative Fecto.
Thank you, Senator, and Representative Matlack, and committee members once again. I am Justin Fecto, and I have co-sponsored a series of bills, so I'll get right to it. As far as it pertains to LD 1237, sponsored by Senator Keim, this is a great bill that would allow the governor to receive aid from the federal government without needing or holding unilateral powers that have caused much harm to Maine people. This would be a smart and relevant addition to state statute, and one that I hope can earn multi-partisan support. As it pertains to LD 14, sponsored by Senator Pouliot, this bill is an effective way to give governor powers for a limited period of time, yet require an emergency level of consent of the legislature in order to continue emergency powers. It has become clear that one person should not wield this much power. It is anti-democratic and perpendicular to our representative republic. 2/3 consent in order to continue emergency powers brings more people to the table in order to tackle Maine's most pressing and imminent issues. As it pertains to LD 131, sponsored by Representative Dillingham, this bill is a great starting point to ensure there are greater checks and balances between our branches of government. Even though I am a legislator, I believe that the legislative branch should be the loudest among the three branches, as it serves as a direct link and representation of the Maine people. Sections 1, 2, and 4 of the proposed bill would allow for greater input from the Legislative Council. As a rank and file member, I would desire the full consent of the entire legislature, but granting certain authority to the Legislative Council would increase the speed in which the legislative branch may be able to deal with imminent threats and issues concerning the liberty of all Maine people. Omitting alcoholic beverages from Section 3 of this bill is, in my belief, good policy. The final section, Section 7, provides important amendments to the state statute to restore balance between the executive and legislative branches, particularly in lines 21 and 22, where it states that a new state of emergency may not be declared for at least 30 days without approval by a majority vote of each house of the legislature. That would end back and forth power plays between the branches. As it pertains to LD 608, sponsored by Representative Johansson, Section 1 of this bill is something I had not considered until reading it. This provision may very well better provide cooperation between state and local government. Sections 2 and 3 are an effective way to give any governor powers for a limited period of time, yet require an emergency level of consent of the legislature in order to continue emergency powers. LD 628, sponsored by Representative Carmichael. This bill would be an improvement to current state statute. The pain and heartache that our families have suffered due to government action cannot be understated, as we heard in his testimony. The closure of a person's ability to provide for themselves or worship their higher power should not be at the sole discretion of one person. Ideally, it would not be in the purview of any government, but this is certainly a wildly more desirable amendment to current law. LD 729, sponsored by Senator Keim. This bill is simple in nature, and so is my testimony on it. Transparency has been a missing ingredient in government. This bill aims to restore a bit of transparency. Transparency is always the right call, so I urge the committee to vote ought to pass on LD 729. On LD 955, sponsored by Senator Keim, even as a co-sponsor, I understand I had issues with the first sections of the bill, as did the sponsor. So my co-sponsorship of this bill pertains specifically to Section C of this bill. My goal for improving checks and balances did not just involve the legislative and executive branches. I fully believe the judicial branch has a compelling interest in how our republic functions, and granting them more access during times of emergency is the right thing to do. LD 980, sponsored by Representative Sampson. Throughout this bill, there are very limited times in which the governor can move unilaterally. Section 1 restricts broad powers in 37B, Section 742 to only 7 days after filing an emergency proclamation. In Section 3, powers after the 7th day revert to the legislature with an important provision of allowing remote voting should such a circumstance arise. Section 4 stops runaway executive branch power by making it an impeachable offense for the governor to exercise emergency powers not allowed by statute. These are important provisions for this committee to seriously consider. Having legislative involvement and control baked in could be an ideal way to balance powers for years and administrations to come. LD 985, sponsored by Senator Stewart. I support this constitutional amendment when it comes to emergency powers. 60 days might be a little long, but perhaps the timeline longer than 30 days is enough to garner 2/3 required for its passage in the legislature. LD 1019, sponsored by Representative Bradstreet. This is a smart bill designed to reduce the intense confusion from one executive order to another. In section 2 of the bill, it would essentially require the governor to reissue executive order within each executive order with each emergency order. The cross-referencing of several orders was not a productive way of communicating executive power to the main people this last year. LD 1039, sponsored by Senator Kime. This bill holds 2 different thresholds as it pertains to the legislature weighing in on emergency proclamations: a simple majority vote for 30-day emergency extensions and a 2/3 vote for the termination of an emergency order.
Representative Fecto, I don't mean to, but I think you're past 3 minutes, but yeah, if we could wrap it up in a couple of minutes, because we're gonna keep each of the co-sponsors and everyone else other than sponsors to 3 minutes.
Rod, thank you, Senator.
Sorry.
And so as it pertains to LD 137 by Representative Lemlin, which has not been read yet, and LD 1220 sponsored by Representative Andrews, I'm in support of those as well. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Who is the next co-sponsor? I see Senator Garin.
Hello.
Hey, good morning.
I'll just turn that on for a minute so you can see I am here. I'm having some internet difficulties today. I don't know if it's because of the wind or what, but
okay.
In Labor Committee, I kept freezing. So I'm just going to shut off the video and just have my mic on.
And I don't mean to, but I'm just going to use a stopwatch because for 3 minutes for everybody. So.
Okay, I'll be brief.
Thank you.
Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlack, and esteemed members of the State and Local Government Committee, thank you for allowing me to testify in favor of a number of bills today. Though I am a co-sponsor of only a few of them, I support the intent of all of them. I am Senator Stacey Garin, representing Senate District 10. When the legislature adjourned last March, I didn't think any of us would have predicted that the pandemic, in turn, the state of emergency, would go on for so long. Something like this had never happened in our lifetime, and nobody else understood the amount of power that was being put in the hands of just one person. The US Constitution and the Maine Constitution set up 3 equal co-branches of government. There are checks and balances to ensure no one branch becomes more powerful than another. What we have discovered is that under the current law, the executive branch has become too powerful in relation to the other branches. Under the state of emergency, the executive was able to completely shut down aspects of the judicial branch and to pass executive orders, thereby replacing the legislative branch entirely. It is now time to replace our government so that in the future situations like this, the legislature is able to provide a check on the executive, even during a state of emergency. This idea of rebalancing the branches should not be a partisan one. It is instrumental in preserving our republic. When one branch becomes too powerful, it is responsible for the others to provide that check. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you, Senator Garin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Baldacci, it looks like Representative Lemlin is here.
Oh, okay, yep. Representative Lemlin, welcome to State and Local Government.
Thank you, Senator Baldacci.
You have the floor for LD 1137, an act to limit the governor's emergency powers by requiring a 2/3 vote of the legislature to continue an emergency after 90 days. Go ahead, sir.
I apologize for not being here earlier, but link to be invited here disappeared, and then it popped back up on my screens, and I was trying to contact people to try to get in here. So
no worries. We've all had the same technological issues.
So Senator Baldacci and Representative Matlack and esteemed members of the state and local government, thank you for having me. My name is Michael Lemlin, and I proudly represent District 88, which is Chelsea, Jefferson, Whitefield, and part of Noblesboro. I'm here to present to you LD 1137, which is an act to limit the governor's executive powers by requiring a 2/3 vote of the legislature in order to continue the emergency after 90 days. Although I agree with the governor that the governor should have executive powers in an emergency, there needs to be checks and balances, which falls on our legislature. If we had these measures in place, many of our businesses would not have closed permanently, and the livelihood of so many could have possibly been saved. Are suffering the most. As a teacher, kindergarten.
Okay, Cheryl,
Is having the most
Representative
horrible
Lemlin?
time trying to teach these kindergartners, especially.
Okay. I just you had froze for a minute.
Sir, could you turn off your video? Perhaps that'll give you the ability to speak with us.
Yeah, Representative
Yeah,
Lemlin,
I'm not sure why this is
that work.
happening, but
Thank you. I know there's a lot of windstorms going around the state.
does that help at all? Probably not.
No, it's much better. Go ahead, sir.
How are we now?
We sound better.
And that my daughter teaches kindergarten. Watching it from home. Care and
Okay, now you're kind of freezing in and out, Representative
need to
Lemlin.
get their attention. Not sure what I could do.
Is there any way you could just call? Is there a call in like on your cell phone that's easier?
If he tries to call in from his cell phone, we probably could get him right on.
Representative Lemlin, is that possible? So we're having a few technical difficulties. What I will do is I'll take Representative Lemlin when he comes back, and I will go forward with some of the people who are here right now, and then we'll bring Cheryl. I'll bring Representative Lemlin back. Once it's technologically working.
I'll try to send him a phone number.
Yeah, it'll work. So I'm going to next Representative Billy Bob Fockingham. Good morning, Representative Fockingham. Hello. There you are.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Can you see me and hear me all right?
Yeah, I'm just going to indicate to you, like I have the other co-sponsors, that we have a 3-minute time limit.
Roger, I'll do my best.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlack, members of the Committee on State and Local Government. I'm Representative Billy Bob Fockingham, and I am here to speak in favor of LD 980, an act to establish balance in the governor's emergency powers. I will keep my comments brief. Whether you agree or disagree with the state of emergency or not, we should all agree that our current statutes governing a state of emergency and the governor's nearly unrestricted power during a state of emergency should be amended. There is currently no mechanism for legislative input in a state of emergency. There are different types and levels of certain states of emergency. This bill is not controversial, so please do not make this about our current governor. I think if the former governor had continued an emergency 13 times and signed dozens of executive orders, a lot of opinions would be very different than they are now. Therefore, we should pass this so that future emergencies will include input and oversight from the legislative branch. Thank you for your consideration. That's the end of my written testimony, but which I've submitted, but I would also like to include a couple of my stories and experiences from this current state of emergency. In the spring of 2020, I wrote a letter to the chief executive in the spring for a reopening committee. The idea was even supported by the editorial board of the Bangor Daily News. I got no response from the governor's office to that letter. It was a letter sent to all of the governor's staff, and it was widely circulated in the media. Then in the fall, when the governor made a no exception mask mandate, I wrote to the governor about all the disabled people being discriminated. I compiled and sent a 68-page document with their stories. These were people with physical and mental disabilities, rape survivors, single moms with children with severe Asperger's and other developmental disabilities that could no longer go into public for simple and necessary tasks like getting groceries or checking the mail. I sent this letter to the chief executive, the governor, everyone in her staff, Narav Shah, Jean Lambrew, and others, but I did not even get the courtesy of a response. Is this the type of unaccountable bureaucracy, how we want to manage a state of emergency? I just wanted to include those stories in there so that everybody on this committee could understand, because some people don't understand what it's like, especially being in my situation. That's two examples where a state representative reached out to the governor in good faith, and I have not even been given a response. So that's something that definitely needs to be addressed. In my opinion, if the governor disagrees with me, then I could at least get an email that says, I disagree with that. No, but when I've reached out 2 separate times on behalf of my constituents and people all over the state, I compiled a 68-page document and did not even get the courtesy of response. So I just wanted to put that in there too. Thank you.
Yep. No, thank you. Your 3 minutes are up, and I appreciate your time. Let's see. I think we have Representative Lemelin back with us.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning, Senator. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what part you heard or didn't hear. So the primary purpose of my bill, of course, is the checks and balances. What I'm asking is to allow the legislative body to have a say in an emergency if it's extended more than 90 days. And I think if this were in place, a lot of our problems in the state could have been circumvented. So I believe as a legislator that we should all be able to represent our districts. I have hundreds of emails from people within my district, constituents who are saying the same thing. They want to know why myself and other legislators aren't doing anything about this. And I keep having to try to tell them we don't have the powers. And so if the people want the legislative body to have a say in it, I think that's our obligation to do as the people have asked. So I am asking you to allow the proper checks and balances and to prevent in the future over a year-long chaos and shutdown of our state without the legislator putting in their input. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, Representative Lemelin. Any questions for Representative Lemelin? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, sir, for your time. Representative Toole, you have a question?
No, I was just wondering if we were still on co-sponsors.
Well, I recognize Representative Lemelin because he's a sponsor.
Oh,
so
okay, and that's fine.
Yeah, no, I wanted to get him in because of the technical difficulties. So,
Right, no, I understand that, but are we, other than him, are we?
Other than him, we're on to co-sponsors.
Okay, good.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Representative Lemelin. Our next speaker will be Senator Rick Bennett.
Oh.
Good morning, Senator. You're on mute, though. We need to, you need to unmute so we can hear you.
There we go there. And you can hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlack, and distinguished members of the State and Local Government Committee. I am Senator Rick Bennett. I have the honor of serving 13 towns in Oxford and Cumberland counties in the state Senate. I'm here to testify on these bills, and particularly LDs 729, 955, and 1039, of which I'm a co-sponsor. You know, a lot will be heard today and has already been heard about the demands of the state of Maine and US constitutions and their principles of how power must be shared among the three co-equal institutions, each checking and balancing the others. As James Madison argued in Federalist 51, separation of powers is, quote, admitted on all hands to be essential to the preservation of liberty, end quote. It is indeed foundational basis for all of our freedoms. Even if, for argument's sake, we were to put aside the notion that the Constitution of the state of Maine is something that must only be observed when it is convenient or popular, this never-ending state of emergency violates the spirit of good governance. It ignores the basic tenet that no one branch should wield absolute unchecked power. In her actions, or at times her inaction, the chief executive has shown us exactly why unchecked powers like those inherent in states of emergencies must be limited. Last June, when it was learned that hundreds of fraudulent unemployment claims had been filed and paid in Maine, my leadership in the Senate Republicans wrote to Maine's Commissioner of Labor, asking, among other things, how much Maine had paid out in fraudulent claims. We are still awaiting a response. Just before Thanksgiving last year, Senate leaders wrote a letter to the Maine CDC Director Nirav Shah, asking 4 simple questions that someone in his position could answer without any research. Here we are 4 months later, and the director has yet to even acknowledge the letter. Just 9 days ago, 2 colleagues of mine in the state Senate wrote to the Commissioner of Marine Resources about misinformation he and his staff had put forward in the course of a rulemaking process. Like his fellow commissioners in the Mills administration, he never replied. Now we see the chief executive is working with fellow Democrats in the legislature to pass a highly partisan budget, effectively blocking Republicans and our constituents out of the budget.
Senator Baldacci, point of order.
This is not sharing power.
Senator Baldacci.
Yes, hold on.
I believe we're here today to talk about the bills before us.
I'm
so I would prefer if we could please stick to the idea of the bills themselves. Thank you.
Yes, I'm giving an example of the issue related to the centralization of power, which is central to my testimony and to the.
Sir, we're talking about executive authority bills today.
Correct.
Thank you.
Representative Matlack, I think, first of all, Senator Bennett, you're on a 3-minute timer.
Yeah.
So I want you to go for, I appreciate Representative Matlack's point, but I think what we need to do is get through everybody's testimony. And I understand there are differences of opinion on a lot of issues, but today, right now, we're about getting through people's testimony. So I want you to continue. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. As I was saying, this is not about sharing power. It is about centralizing it. It's not inclusive, it's divisive. And my argument is that by her actions, the chief executive during the state of emergency, continuing so, has made it clear that she's not inclined to represent all Mainers or submit to the constitutionally mandated reality of equal branches or checks and balances. This is the very template for demonstrating why declarations of states of emergency must never be open-ended and unchecked. Thank you, and I'll be happy to entertain any further questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Representative Bennett, thank you very much.
Senator Bennett, but thank you.
I'm sorry, Senator Bennett.
Right. No problem. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Representative Laurel Libby, I believe, is with us.
Thank you. I am here. Can you hear and see me?
Yes.
Thank you. Good
morning.
morning, Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlack, and distinguished members of the Committee on State and Local Government. My name is Laurel Libby, and I reside in Auburn. I represent House District 64, which consists of Minot and part of Auburn. I have testimony which you can read that I've submitted, but today instead I'm going to read a story sent to me by a mom here in Maine, and it illustrates very clearly a lot of the issues that we should be handling in the state legislature, and in future emergencies, I hope we will be well able to handle with a change to our state law. I am writing this as a concerned and what I feel is deeply affected parent of Maine children amidst some of the harshest COVID restrictions in our nation. Last year, when the 2 weeks to flatten the curve lockdowns began, my autistic 11-year-old's occupational therapy services fell into the unessential category. Our state decided a service that was vital to how my child interprets and responds to the world was not necessary, but Dunkin' Donuts and smoke shops were deemed essential and permitted to stay open. When he finally was allowed to resume in-person services months later, his regression was clear to the therapist that works with him and documented in his chart. Months later came the mask mandate. I was for reasonable protective measures being put in place, but with his sensory issues, he had a difficult time with this. We chose to homeschool this year because face shields that have typically been acceptable substitutes for cloth coverings are not accepted at his school, not even with a doctor's note. Now we've noticed significant behavioral regression and increased physical aggression, usually towards his younger brothers, but also towards himself. These outbursts included punching himself, scratching himself, and suicidal speech, things he's not done in the past. If you've not experienced your child behaving this way, thank your lucky stars because it's heart-wrenching. I have a senior graduating this year. She has always been an A student and has been accepted to 3 colleges. She was forced into a hybrid school schedule and, like many others, robbed of so many milestone moments over the last year. She has dealt with depression over the winter to the point that she lost 20 pounds and has become anemic from lack of appetite and not eating. Instead of being thrilled at the prospect of turning 18 and going off to college, like she worked so hard for, she is anxious on some days and uncaring on others. My 7-year-old has always been the class social butterfly and a mama's boy, always being respectful and in tune with people's feelings around him. He has become more withdrawn, disrespectful, and argumentative, starved for social attention. He and the 11-year-old fight constantly. I also have a 3-year-old, my wild child. He's learning to connect facial expressions with feelings and what behavior is socially acceptable. Isolation, distancing, and masking have made these things incredibly difficult at such an important developmental stage. He sees his brothers fight constantly. His older brother hurt himself, and his sister just want to lay in bed. Lastly, there's me, a mom of 4 that is watching my children's mental health go down the toilet, who for the first time put the crisis intervention number magnet on the fridge because the first time I felt like I might need it to call crisis on my own child. I don't want resources for Zoom events. I don't want mask ideas. I don't want connections to resources that I've had for years. I want this addressed, and I want you to know what's happening to my children and many others like them. The 186 representatives and senators that make up the Maine legislature are elected by the people to be the voice of the people. Each region of Maine is unique, and those individuals duly elected to represent their district are best suited to ensure that the voice of the people is heard. I urge the committee to vote ought to pass on LD 1039 and ensure that the voice of the people is heard in a state of emergency. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Libby. Any questions? Okay, seeing none. Representative Libby, thank you very much. Cheryl, who's next?
I believe that's it for sponsors and co-sponsors.
Okay. How many public members of the public altogether?
Well, I can count them for you, but I was gonna let Representative Sampson back in because she's reading that one.
Oh, okay.
That
So
one.
we'll recognize her as the first member of the public. What I'd like to do,
And she's 4, yes.
okay, great. I'd like to take a break in a few minutes, but why don't we have Representative Sampson read her testimony, and then I think we might take a break for a few minutes.
Okay. Here she comes.
Mhm. Let's see, Representative Sampson. Welcome
Thank you.
back.
It's kind of strange when you sort of disappear and you see rejoining. It's like, am I going to fall off? But anyway, thank you. So Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlock, and distinguished members of the Committee of State and Local Government. I'm speaking on behalf of Chris Pettit. He's a veteran of the US Navy and he lives in Waterboro. So this is his testimony in support of LD 980. As of last year, it was decided on behalf of the citizens of Maine that COVID-19 was the most important consideration in the world, precariously more so than any other illness, cause of death, human right, civil liberty, final moment with dying loved ones, financial status, mental health, wellness, joy, childhood, the list goes on. It's been demanded that we abandon our own instincts and faculties for inconsistent generalities drawn by presumed experts and media. 2 weeks to flatten the curve for a virus with a statistical 99.97% survival rate has evolved into a sort of nonsensical moratorium on death itself. Indeed, the circumstances in which we now find ourselves are not science, but science fiction. Our elected and appointed representatives are entrusted to safeguard the hallmarks of our republic, to uphold or enhance the freedom to live our lives as we see fit, not to erode them for political expediency. As such, our system of government does not have a provision to rule by fiat in any capacity, nor does it encourage a collaboration among the branches of government to expand their powers over the people to the detriment of the people. Legitimate constitutional arguments abound that the restrictions endured by the people of Maine are in gross violation of the First and Fourth Amendment and Article 6, Clause 2, and that a persistent thereof under auspices of the 10th Amendment of the United States Constitution are abhorrent to the precedent set by Marbury versus Madison, and to some extent, Jacobson versus Massachusetts. Maine is hailed as one of the safest states in the Union, a testament to the charity and resolve of her people. Neither emergence from a pandemic nor the betterment of society could be sought through indefinite bondage, but in recognizing the rights of businesses to exercise their own operational discretion and the rights of the people to mitigate their own personal health considerations. The exercise of individual freedom has never been without an acceptance of risk, nor has it ever been without mutual trust. The socioeconomic conditions
Representative Sampson, I don't mean to interrupt, but you have about 30 seconds.
Yes, sir, has been leveled in the wake of an inarguable polarized pandemic and the ongoing prosecution of everyday Americans for assurance their livelihoods must be duly brought into question. Thank you for your time and respectfully request that you vote ought to pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Sampson. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
What I'd like to do is take a break until 10 past 12. And people can get lunch. And then we can come back and roll through the afternoon. Is that okay with people? Okay, I guess it is. Thank you. See you at 10 past 12.
Okay, thank you.
State and local, this is Cheryl. May I help you?
Cheryl, you're not muted. You need to mute yourself.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
no
Thank you.
problem.
All right, what are we doing?
We're on lunch break.
Representative Dorr, we're on lunch break until 12:10.
I'm sorry, till when?
12:10.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. How's everyone doing?
I'm back.
There we go. That's what's important. So, Cheryl, hello.
Hello. I have promoted 3 people that are for the bill.
Okay,
And so I guess that's where we're gonna start. And then if you want, I'll just keep doing that all the way through the list.
that's probably the best idea.
Okay. All right, and then I'll do the against and then the neither.
Yeah,
Okay.
that works out really well.
All right.
So
I believe that excuse me, I'm sorry.
yeah,
I believe that at the end, a Representative Tool at the end of the floors, Representative Tool would like to speak about LD 131.
at the end, when would he like to speak? Right now?
No, at the end of the public comment.
Oh, okay. Representative Tool, did you want to say something right now?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I can go at the end after the public. I know the public's, it's been a long morning for everybody and people are jumping at the bit, so I can go last since I'm not going anywhere anyway.
Okay, unless people want to go through the instructions again, I was going to dispense with that. Is that okay? Okay. So our next speaker looks like Michelle Truman. Is that correct? Michelle,
There we go. Yes.
Michelle, good morning, good afternoon now.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
You-
Thank you for.
Sure, we're gonna go, what I've done with other speakers who aren't the sponsors is limit everybody to 3 minutes apiece.
Okay.
So I just wanted you to know that in advance. I'll tell you when you have 30 seconds left.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlack, and members of the Committee on State and Local Government. My name is Michelle Truman, and I live in Hollowell, Maine. I stand in support of LD 980, and I ask you to vote ought to pass. LD 980 would place required limits on the emergency powers of the governor, asserting much needed oversight by the legislature. For the past year, only one branch of government has effectively ruled Maine. Our state has suffered greatly as a result, with somewhat arbitrary percentages, closures, and prohibitions being imposed. I applaud the efforts of so many state senators and representatives who have stepped forward to restore balance and common sense to Maine government. Amazingly, there are 13 other bills that address aspects of the serious overreach of power wielded by the governor. I think those dealing with the protection of businesses and religious and civic organizations, LD 628 and LD 1142, both ought to pass. These ones having to do with businesses and religious churches and civic organizations, I think they're paramount. Aren't we talking about the economic backbone and the bedrock of our state? And I was very encouraged by so much of the testimony ahead. I listened to it all. It was fabulous. I am not alone when I say I've had enough of the constant fear that plagues our state and shoves everything else into the background. Let us reclaim for Maine the freedom on which our country was founded. Please vote ought to pass on LD 980. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Truman? Ms. Truman, thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And I think our next one is Gina Leduc Kuntz. Is that Am I pronouncing that correctly? Oh, you're on mute.
Oh, yeah, it's Gina Leduc Koontz. Thank you for asking.
Go right ahead, ma'am.
So, good afternoon, Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlack, and members of the Legislative Committee on State and Local Government. My name is Gina Leduc Koontz, and I'm a resident of Freeport. I'm just calling in to echo what so many others have said before me in support of LD 980 and also the other bills, LD 14, LD 131, 608, 980, of course, and 1220. I can honestly say this past year has probably been one of the most difficult years of my family's life. I have 6 children, 3 of them are grown adults or young adults and outside of the home, and 3 children still inside the home, 16, 14, and 11. My 3 older children are specifically worried about their 3 siblings and wonder what I'm doing wrong as a mother. They're very, very concerned about their siblings, as I am concerned about my younger 3 children. Daily, there's fighting. Daily, there's idle talk of suicide. Daily, there's talk of their friends idly talking of suicide. There's hopelessness. There's no sense of a future. What has happened here to our children is appalling, and I can't believe any representative would go along with continuing this situation. I've sent in my written testimony of the other reasons, in my opinion, of the unconstitutionality of how Governor Mills has operated this emergency, and how power should be reshared with the legislators. And that's about all I have to say. And I just implore you guys to start listening to what's happening to the state of Maine's children. And I thank you for hearing me.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you, Gina, for participating today.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, Jacob Posick. Good afternoon.
Can you hear me, Mr. Chair?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you.
And just so you know, we have a 3-minute timer for all speakers.
Yes, sir, I'm aware. I'm a veteran of the 3 minutes. I'm going to do my best. Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlack, and distinguished members of the Committee on State and Local Government. My name is Jake Posick, and I serve as the Director of Communications at Maine Policy Institute, a nonpartisan nonprofit organization that advocates for individual liberty and economic freedom in Maine. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of reforming Maine's process for declaring and terminating, sustaining states of emergency. Many Mainers continue to question the appropriateness of a year-long state of emergency in which a sole political official holds the power to unilaterally alter laws, rules, or regulations with little coordination with legislators or the public. The emergency declaration, extension, and termination process should be clear and consistent, no matter the current political makeup of the legislature and executive branch. By requiring periodic legislative approval, as many of these bills propose, the law would require legislators and the governor to convene in public, lay out the facts, and develop a consensus for governing in an extended emergency situation. It is crucial that this authority be vested primarily with the people's body, the legislature. The principle of separation of powers must not be forgotten, even during an emergency. We support the intent behind all of these bills, but acknowledge there's no way we're going to get an ought to pass out of a committee on all, however many of them there are. So this is what we will say. In our opinion, Maine's emergency powers law should require, at a minimum, a legislative concurrence vote to extend the initial declaration, and then an additional concurrence vote on each extension thereafter. So once the initial declaration is in place for 30 days, after 30 days, the legislature convenes, approves the emergency, it continues, and then each subsequent extension thereafter would require legislative involvement. Without legislative involvement, the people have no mechanism to petition their government against what is happening, and that is what has happened over the last year. The second thing is narrowly tailored executive orders that require the government to justify its need for an order or regulation. The third is expedited judicial review to legal challenges of individual orders. The fourth is legislative ability to nullify specific orders issued by the governor. And lastly, emergency power is terminated immediately when the emergency itself is terminated. Please keep in mind that none of these bills would take away the governor's power to act quickly in situations where time is short. They all maintain an initial window in which the governor may declare an emergency and act to management. All but 3 would take effect 90 days after enactment, likely beyond the scope of the current emergency. Maine's emergency powers law exists to allow the governor to respond to an imminent threat. It's meant to be used sparingly and should not be used to allow one person to control all of state government for a year or more. These bills simply require involvement and oversight of the legislative branch by of the executive branch by the legislative branch. The appropriate question for this committee is, under what condition, if ever, should a governor be able to deem himself or herself fit to exercise near absolute power for any period of time after the initial declaration? Shouldn't the legislature, the people's body, play a larger role in this process? We urge you to approve this bill or whichever iteration of it you are so inclined to advance out. But lastly, I would say in closing, we've had great success working with this committee in the past to move forward with what appears to be hyper-partisan legislation in a very non-partisan way. Last session, we got through this committee LD 1209 to require public hearings for ballot initiatives, which many thought we couldn't accomplish, but we were able to do that. And I think the people of Maine will be better off for it moving forward. And so I ask for that same level of cooperation and nonpartisanship on these specific bills. And thank you very much for your time this afternoon now to deliver these statements. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Posick. Any questions for Mr. Posick? Okay, seeing none, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think the next person is Fernand Martino. Is that correct? Okay, is Nancy Marble?
I'm not sure if he's even there.
Yeah, how about, okay, I just lost Nancy Marble.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, there's Fernand Martino, are you there?
I see a hand raised.
Yeah, I do too. So I'm assuming
I'm
someone's
gonna
there.
ask him to unmute.
Yeah,
There we go.
Mr. Martino.
Okay,
Hello.
all right. Hello, can you hear me?
It's
Can you
kind
hear me?
of, it's a little bit muffled, but yes, we can hear you.
Okay, well, I'll be brief. We just lost power out here in Lovell, so I turned on my generators so that we can talk. I lost you for a while, but you're back. Anyways, I submitted a written statement, so I won't take the time to read that. I guess what I've been thinking about what I heard this morning. So I agree with most of the sentiments that were expressed this morning. But there are numerous bills, and those need to be reconciled, I guess, somehow. Some on some fundamental issues that relate to declaring an emergency and renewing, and there's different ways of going about doing that. So what I'd like to do now is to focus on my remarks as they relate to implementation. And since implementation might involve changing existing laws, obviously that's what we're talking about here, and maybe even the Maine Constitution for some reasons, I think we need to study this whole thing in a very deliberate manner. How to do that, I'm not an expert in government organization, but maybe some kind of a commission whose purpose is to investigate, analyze the current situation and to make recommendations. We're talking about long-term change and how perhaps it may impact the current emergency, but our focus is mostly on future emergencies. And we don't know who the governor is going to be and who the legislators are going to be and all of that. So we need to look at this in a nonpartisan, objective way, and look at our current emergency management system and determine whether change is required. Obviously, people think change is required. I do. And what I want, my remarks focus on two aspects of emergency management system. I argue for more transparency in the system and for providing for direct public participation at every point of decision-making on important decisions, like starting an emergency or renewing an emergency or ending an emergency. The study that I referred to, the focus of it and the focus of my remarks is the impact that the current emergency management system has had on our individual rights, our fundamental rights. And I
Mr.
submit
Martineau,
that those have been.
if you could wrap it up, please, sir.
Well, that's, I pretty much have. You know, I think, number one, study this thing thoroughly. Number two, be prepared to implement recommendations that, and I think this is the key point. I would like to see more direct public participation of qualified people. Maybe MEMA can manage a kind of a list of cadre of qualified people that can represent people and our individual rights, making sure that somebody is there at all times. Maybe they're employees of MEMA, but their job is to look out for our rights. That's their focus.
Okay,
They
Mr.
don't owe an
Mr.
allegiance
Martineau?
to anybody else.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
Martineau.
Thank you. Yes, we have
Thank
a
you.
3-minute limit for everybody, so I appreciate
I
it.
understand.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So our next speaker looks like Nancy Marble. Nancy, are you there? Okay, I don't hear anything from Nancy Marble. I'll move on to John Harker. John Harker, there you, oh, this is Nancy. So
Yes.
John, we'll go with Nancy first, and then you can speak after Nancy.
Sure, no problem.
Thank you. Ms. Marble, you have, everybody has 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm reading a testimony today. My name is Nancy Marble. I'm from Wilton, and I'm reading a testimony from Brad Saunders of Hebron in support of LD 1039. Founders of this great nation formed a government that was of, by, and for the people of the United States. Unfortunately, our relationship with each other as citizens has become very strained. Political advisors have deliberately created factions in order to arouse fiery, issue-driven passions in their constituents in hopes of gaining votes as well as to gain greater political campaign funds. The cost of these foolish actions has removed civil discourse and polarized the state of Maine as well as our entire union. Now we find our nation overrun with politicians who do not serve their constituents, but rather their own ambitions. Lust for personal power or wealth by those sworn to serve in government has brought us to the brink of ruin. Such personal ambitions should be kept out of politics or any other public service. Let those with personal ambitions stay in the private sector where they can go as far as their ambitions may legally take them. Is the dream of founders of this great nation nothing but a dream of fools, or can we overcome our current political climate? Will the ambitions of a few global elites now rule over this land, which claims to be for a free people? Will our oligarchs, who have already greatly silenced the voice of we the people through their embedded networks of power, being rapidly dispensed via social and mainstream media, continue? Governor Mills, do you think these global oligarchs will actually include you in their spoils if they become completely successful? The recent promises of protection by a nanny government has had far too high a price tag. Those tactics have been employed many times in world history, and all those experiments ended with poverty and great human tragedy. All those horrors of the past started with political ambition. It is time to choose whether we will allow ourselves to continue down this road or return to a government of personal freedom and a government that is of the people.
Okay, Ms. Marble, you have 30 seconds.
I'd also like to add these words from a 92-year-old Holocaust survivor. When I think today, when I see people masked, I think of the yellow star which gave everybody liberty to arrest me, to assault me, to call me a carrier of disease, to spit on me. I would like to tell you that this is worse. It is more insidious. It concerns more people. There is a hypocrisy in the public narrative that is absolutely unbearable. Thank you for your time.
Yep, thank you. Okay, Mr. Harker, your turn, sir.
Thank you, Senator Baldacci and members of the State and Local Government Committee. My name is John Harker. I'm a citizen of Mount Vernon and operator of a specialty nursery and a pick your own orchard. The bills before you today, I think, are a good start in reviewing and updating the emergency powers. It hasn't been done, it looks like, since maybe 2001, 2011. I would also like to ask you to review the energy emergency proclamations and especially the powers given to the governor under that emergency to help you craft changes to the general emergency powers and also to change the energy ones to avoid the problems that happened with this emergency. Under the energy section, the governor has the powers that could potentially shut down all the business in the state on just a hint of an impending threat of a shortage of energy resources. She can even determine the temperature at which you can keep a commercial building or whether you can even operate your car. But interestingly, in the energy one, she's not allowed to enforce some of these powers without the consent of the Legislative Council. So that might be something to look at, or with adequate notice to businesses or citizens. And this section is missing from the existing general orders. And with the emergency, energy emergency, she can do that up to 3 months without any oversight. And only then does she have to call in the legislature, but the rules aren't clear for canceling or how to cancel until you get to the next section. So 3 months is a little bit long. So can you imagine what the energy emergency powers could do to the state like ours in 3 months? Just look at what this emergency did to our economy based on the input of only unelected bureaucrats. So please, I'd appreciate if you could review an act to limit the energy emergency powers and enact better management practices for the general emergency powers to protect our health, welfare, and also I just want to make a point that I think it was a very good process to develop guidelines for us to follow, both in businesses and individual citizens once we found out what was going on. But it's really up to us, I believe, to implement them or change them to what works for us and our customers and our business. So I like guidelines. I don't like regulations that are going to be enforced unless it was truly going to be a real problem. Thank you very much for allowing me to testify today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Harker. Are there any questions for Mr. Harker? Seeing none. Thank you, sir. The next person I see is Jesse Boda. Jesse Boda. Hello. Is Jesse Boda there? There. Hi, Ms. Boda. Good afternoon. Welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You have 3 minutes, just like all the other speakers.
Okay, thank you. I'm here with my son, Max. He's homeschooled and learning a bit about government today. Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlock, and members of the Committee on the State and Local Government. My name is Jesse Boda, and I support LD 955. Thank you for this time to speak. I support this bill, and frankly, any bill that would prevent the unprecedented, devastating events of this past year. I am a registered nurse, an educator, and a Christian who has seen firsthand the severe harm caused by the governors and other elected officials overstepping of their authority during this pandemic. As a follower of Christ specifically, I want to kindly remind you all today that your authority is given to you by God, and that authority is limited by Him. It is limited to protecting your constituents' God-given rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I can confidently say that I, nor the Lord, will hold any of you accountable if I get sick or even die from COVID. That is just not within your scope of authority. To promote health and wellness and to allocate funds to care for the sick, absolutely. These are noble causes and commanded by God. On the other hand, I do believe the Lord and the people of Maine will hold elected officials accountable for the actions taken outside of that God-given authority. The severe collateral damage happening from lockdown measures is devastating, unacceptable, and unnecessary. The unequal balance of power must not continue. The governor and other elected officials' silence and seeming unwillingness to give all Mainers a voice during this time and to make their own COVID risk assessments is also unacceptable. The phrase, "We will protect you from COVID at all costs, even if it kills you," has come to my mind frequently. Your authority comes with great responsibility, that is true, but I am here to relieve you of this new one that many of you have unjustly taken on during this time, to protect Mainers from COVID, seemingly at all costs. I hope to appeal to your God-given conscience today, not your party affiliation, and urge you to pass this and other similar legislation. I urge you to be bold and brave during this time. Restore Mainers' freedom and voice and your rightful place as an authority before God.
Okay.
I am sincerely praying for you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Boda. Any questions? Okay, seeing none, I think that Senator Keim has asked to read testimony from a constituent who has lost their power. Senator Keim, welcome again.
Yes, good afternoon. I thought you missed me, so I'd come back and join you again.
We appreciate that. Thank you. You have 3 minutes, just like all the others.
Very good.
Thank you.
To the esteemed members of the Committee on State and Local Government, I am speaking for a constituent, as stated, in support of LD 1039, an act to safeguard the people's voice in a state of emergency. Last year, because of an unending state of emergency was declared and continued month after month, my 16-year-old daughter did not receive necessary dental care in a proper and reasonable manner. Because there was confusion with dental providers regarding the governor's state of emergency restricting the treatment that oral surgeons could administer, my daughter ultimately had to endure, under only mild sedation, the painful extractions of 2 impacted wisdom teeth. My daughter had been given antibiotic treatment in hopes to delay the necessary surgical removal until the time when general anesthesia could be administered. Due to the pain, she had been unable to eat solid food for a month prior. The restrictions placed upon oral surgeons administering general anesthesia did not lift in the time frame she needed. Consequently, she was only able to have 2 of her teeth removed, when she would otherwise have been able to have all 4 taken out simultaneously and with the proper use of general anesthesia. As a result of this traumatizing experience, she needed to complete a second full dose of antibiotics and must now await a second surgical procedure to remove the 2 remaining teeth. We could not have imagined that a declaration of emergency would last so long, resulting in the kind of treatment expected in impoverished countries. Under this prolonged, unending state of emergency, medical and dental care was deferred to the point that what was intended to protect the public actually became harmful to the citizens. Please vote ought to pass on LD 1039, an act to safeguard the people's voice in a state of emergency. The legislative branch has been sidelined, while Governor Mills has, for the past year, gone unchecked with mandates, restrictions, and limitations put on the people of Maine. Kristen Chapman of Sumner. Thank you so much for letting me jump back in and give voice to my constituent.
Absolutely. Thank you, Senator Keim. Daniel Chase, you are next, sir. Daniel Chase. I don't see where you are. We still, oh, there he is. Okay. Mr. Chase?
Yeah, hopefully this works. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
We have a 3-minute rule, sir, just for all the speakers. So I just want
right. But I've got 4 things I have to speak about, so that's 12 minutes total.
No, it's going to be 3 minutes for each person.
Okay. Each one of your bills is highly flawed. Each one fails to apply Maine Constitution Article 4, Part 13 Section 1 that says a legislature has sole authority to pass laws and regulations. Under Article 3, Section 2, no person belonging to one branch of government shall perform a duty properly belonging to another branch of government. Under the Constitution, the governor has no authority. Now, it could be an error because it does say with the exceptions hereinafter stated, but I can't find any such statement allowing the governor to do any of this. To allow the governor to call the president and say, help, help, fine, no problem. To allow her to control anything is wrong. And we have tyranny by one man or woman, the governor, or we will have tyranny by a small group of people, the legislative council. Constitutionally, Jacobson v. Massachusetts, the legislature has to do it, not a small section of it. Your bills are basically unconstitutional. To amend the Constitution to say that the governor is limited to 90 days actually gives her authority she doesn't have in the Constitution. So that is not allowable because you do not want to give her something, you want to remove it. You would actually be implicitly giving her authority in the Constitution by limiting her authority that she doesn't have. Now, the idea of limiting this is perfect. The legislature needs to take back their authority and say, okay, governor, we'll let you have, I don't care, 7 days, 30 days, whatever. It's a very short time to declare an emergency. After that, it's all ours. You do not have authority to present an emergency more than once for any issue that comes up. You do otherwise, you are outside the United States Constitution's guarantee of a Republican form of government because we have a dictatorship, we have a tyranny, and it doesn't matter whether it's a tyranny of one government or it's a tyranny of a small group in one committee. We need to have the entire legislature involved. Otherwise, sir, you have no authority because the Supreme Court has declared in Lurie v. United States, protection brings allegiance, allegiance brings protection, one is compensation for the other, and you've removed my protection with this legislation. Therefore, you have no authority.
Mr. Chase, you have 30 seconds.
All right. If you want corruption, keep the governor having the ability to perform these duties that are legislated. If you want honor and integrity in government, which I do, remove it. And I would say completely, except to call the federal government for help.
Okay, thank you, sir. Are there any questions for Mr. Chase? Thank you, Mr. Chase. Our next speaker will be Phil Merletti. Mr. Merletti, welcome to State and Local Government. You have 3 minutes. You're on mute, so you might want to unmute yourself. You're still on mute, sir. I'm sorry. You need to unmute yourself, Mr. Merletti. There you go.
How's that?
Now we can hear you.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlock, members of the State and Local Committee. I want to ditto Senator Kayam and Representative Sampson. What a wonderful, wonderful speech they have given. I give them a lot of credit. My name is Phil Merletti. I am the spokesperson for Take America Back and a researcher for Take America Back and the Constitution Coalition. I very rarely begin a presentation with a question, least of all 2 questions. Why would the Maine people wish to reduce the power of the governor during a real emergency, especially when we need the complete republic, which consists of the legislature and the judicial department? This is something that I haven't heard, that we need to include the judicial department in this too. Why would the Maine people want to replace the Maine Republic with the democracy of mob rule, or least of all, with the dictatorship which we have at the present time? Our Maine founders never expected the Maine Constitution and the Maine government to be replaced by a dictatorship. Now, before I go any further, this is the first time I have ever agreed with every bill that's up for changing things. It's amazing. And I agree with every legislator that I've heard so far. It completely blows my mind that this is the situation. There's a handful of individuals who have studied and know the history of the evolution of the Maine State Title 37. This handful of people know how it was intended to be used in how it is expected to work, and how repugnant now 37-B has become willfully misused. As a result, since it was engaged 1 year ago, it is not only unconstitutional, it is anti-constitutional and repugnant to the main Constitution. As one of the handful of people who know how to return 37-B back under the required mandates of the main Constitution, I request to be invited to the committee to help rewrite the corrections. I wish at this time to commend those legislators who have recognized that 37-B as rewritten since the year 2000 to 2004 is repugnant to the Constitution and have decided to repeal the anti-constitutional portion of 37-B. This is being done by removing certain portions of the tyrannical power of the governor that has taken the privilege and advantage to use against the Maine people. Yes, Joe.
I just want to let you know you have 30 seconds.
Thank you, sir. The authors of LD 31 initiated a good start, but they forgot to look at section 741, which I included in my presentation here. Section 741 needs to be looked at, scrutinized, and rechanged along with 742 and 743. There needs to be important justifiable additions, but in this bill 137,
Mr. Marletti, I
no longer allow the legislative council to have any part in this because the council
Mr. Marletti,
is
I have
controlled
to.
by whoever is in power.
Okay, Mr. Marletti, that's all the
Yes.
time we have. So that's the 3 minutes. Do we have any questions for Mr. Marletti? Okay.
Please question me on 741.
Okay, I think we're all set. And
Nobody has any questions on 741?
no. So the next speaker, Cheryl,
Thank
will be, thank you, Mr. Marletti. William Clardy.
Yep,
correct?
these folks are against or neither for nor against.
Oh, okay. So these Mr. McClarty is against.
So we're going to hear from Representative Toole before we move on to those who are opposed to this legislation. Thank you.
Yep, go right ahead, Representative Toole.
That's all right. If you want to move ahead and do the others first, I can wait and go last. I know folks have been waiting such a long time, so.
No, that's okay. You can, I think you'll be within the group of those people who are in favor of these bills.
Yes, thank you. So, thank you, Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlack. I do not have written testimony, but I did want to echo Representative Dillingham's testimony this morning and state how important and comprehensive LD 131 is. I also think in looking at it, it presents the best bipartisan approach for moving forward. It doesn't go too far. It doesn't go, it's not too hot, it's not too cold. It's sort of like the porridge and Goldilocks and the Three Bears. It's just right. I believe as a bill goes, it was well researched, as Representative Dillingham and others did early on in the emergency, that it was well researched and well constructed early on and submitted last May, so that with the idea that it would come up either in a special session or in this session. So I think that it also has that going for it. I know we have a wide range of bills from 7 days to with tenure of when the emergency can be triggered and lots of different questions around that. But I think in all of these questions, this one bill is probably the most balanced and evenly distributed and most comprehensive. There are things from other bills I like, and certainly when we have the work session, I think we can put our heads together and try to cobble other pieces of it together. But in summary, I know my 3 minutes must be just about up. I wholeheartedly support LD 131 and look forward to working on it with you in the work session.
Thank you, Representative Tool. Is there anyone else, Cheryl, that wishes to speak for any of the bills?
I have a lady on email that has asked to speak, but I didn't send her the link because she didn't sign up. Do you want me to send her a link?
I think at this point, I think no. I mean,
Okay. She
I think
sent testimony.
yeah, you can offer her she can submit some written testimony.
She did, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So, so the next group of people will be those speaking against. Is that correct?
Correct.
So, Jerry Reed, did you wish to speak first, sir, or do you want me to go through others?
I'm happy to speak first. Thank you, Senator Baldacci and Representative Matlack, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on State and Local Government. I'm Jerry Reed. I'm Chief Counsel to Governor Mills, and I'm here today to testify in opposition to the 14 bills before you for hearing. A year ago, the COVID-19 pandemic began to unfold across the globe, leaving no corner, including no corner of Maine, untouched. Little was known then about the nature of the virus and the measures and resources we would need to protect ourselves from it. Despite these unknowns, Maine has weathered this terrible storm far better than almost any other state. Our success in navigating these waters is due in large part to the efforts of the people of Maine, who have overwhelmingly shown themselves to be resilient and responsible in meeting this challenge. Maine's consistent ranking at the top of most lists measuring the impact of COVID-19 on the states is due to their efforts and their sacrifices, and Governor Mills thanks them. Our success is also attributable to the foresight of the Maine legislature in granting this governor and her predecessors necessary authority to respond to an emergency quickly when lives are at stake. The existing statutes, first enacted in 1983, and now allow the nimble and efficient decision-making that is critical to an effective emergency response, giving officials authority to react rapidly to changing and unpredictable conditions as they unfold. Legislatures are highly effective policy-making bodies, but are not well designed to make numerous time-sensitive emergency management decisions in rapid succession in response to continually emerging circumstances. That responsibility must necessarily fall to the executive. The context for the 14 bills now before you is a highly contagious pandemic, but the next occasion for a governor to declare a state of emergency may well be very different. A terrorist attack, a natural or man-made disaster, or some other now unimaginable scenario. It would be a profound mistake for this legislature to constrain this or future governors from exercising the necessary authority to safeguard Maine people when the state is next confronted with the need for an effective emergency response. This is especially true given that the current statute retains for the legislature the ultimate tool for protecting against executive overreach. The legislature may terminate any emergency declaration by a simple majority vote of each house. If there were broad concern within the legislature that a governor were abusing emergency powers, a termination resolution is the appropriate response. If instead the legislature objects to a particular action or order of the governor, it may address that matter through legislation, again by a simple majority vote. It is therefore completely inaccurate to suggest that a state of emergency silences or otherwise marginalizes the legislature. But it would be seriously misguided for the legislature to rewire the governor's emergency management authority in a manner that limits executive discretion to respond as necessary in the future. The governor is not interested in making the pandemic political. She's only focused on saving the lives and livelihoods of Maine people. The governor will continue to balance the public health and economic health in a prudent and judicious manner within the bounds of her authority and in a strictly nonpartisan and apolitical fashion. We ask that you reject these bills, which would make unnecessary and imprudent changes to a critically important statutory framework. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Are there any questions for Mr. Reed? Seeing none, I would probably would want you to be available at the work session obviously.
I'd be happy to do that, Senator.
Yeah, that would be very helpful. Thank you. Our next speaker, I think William Clardy, I saw you first, and then Rebecca Graham. William, Mr. Clardy, why don't you go first?
Yeah, I'm actually had intended to speak neither in support nor
okay.
opposition, so I may have miscategorized myself when.
Okay, so let me ask Ms. Graham, are you speaking, Ms. Graham, are you speaking for or against, or neither for or against?
In opposition.
Oh, okay, so I will have Ms. Graham speak first, then, and then Mr. Clardy. Okay, thank you, sir. Ms. Graham, go ahead.
Thank you, Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlack, and distinguished members of the State and Local Government Committee. My name is Rebecca Graham, and I am providing testimony in opposition to LDs 608, 955, and 980 on behalf of Maine Municipal Association and at the direction of our 70-member Legislative Policy Committee. As drafted, there are provisions within these bills that seek to restrict the ability for municipal officials to declare a state of emergency for highly localized emergencies or to adequately respond to threats that require specific local powers. These authorities, such as the ability to suspend certain ordinances, are created, amended, and bestowed by the voters on their officials. Municipal officials are concerned with the element in 605 that requires commissioner support in order for an emergency order to apply in that respective county. While it may be the case that emergencies have varying impacts on geographic areas of the state or county or even community, as was shown last year, it's important that all governments and municipalities work together in these most serious emergencies. One entity must take the lead. While rare, the need for municipal officials to be able to declare a state of emergency already is extremely narrow in scope, and it's necessary to allow that municipality to expend funds otherwise restricted, allow municipal employees to stay longer within their shift, or to leverage assistance to move residents out of harm's way. These plans are also consistently reviewed as required by Maine state law in conjunction with community institutions that include hospitals and schools and healthcare facilities, group homes, and daycare centers. These are extremely important and necessary powers when an emergency is restricted to one community, and a state or countywide declaration isn't appropriate. So it's important to frame it through the view of all potential emergencies. Without that local authority, communities would be challenged to move vulnerable folks out of the way. Additionally, local authority allows a municipality to shift political authority through a defined chain of municipal employees who otherwise could not act in that way, either established through charter or ordinance and approved by the residents, in the event that the entire legislative body is unavailable, too injured, or deceased to be able to serve as the acting authority during a state of emergency. Municipal powers are limited. They have, it's also important to note that many town ordinances already have built-in municipal emergency review process within a certain number of days. That legislative body, if it can convene, must convene to extend those powers. So for all of these reasons, municipal officials ask that you vote on not to pass on the provisions that limit municipal authority within this realm. It already has the checks and balances necessary from our local residents. And thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Graham.
Thank you.
You're still here, Senator.
Yes, I'm going to be here. I actually have to, I'll probably be leaving in about seven or 8 minutes. So. Representative Greenwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question for Ms. Graham.
Yes, go ahead.
My question is, in your opposition to these bills, you referenced the 70-member policy committee. Can you tell me how many participants participated in that vote?
I can't tell you how many. We have a 70-member committee, and of the folks that attended that meeting, I know that it was a unanimous decision. They all voted in opposition to that, but I will get those numbers for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, now Mr. Clardy, you are next, sir.
Thank you. I actually am I support the intent behind some of these bills that are coming up, but when reading through them, I'm reminded of the old adage that generals always plan for the last war, and a lot of these bills seem to be written based on addressing shortcomings highlighted solely in this last emergency, and forgetting that, as the lady before me pointed out, emergencies come in all sizes and varieties. So when trying to address the problems that have arisen with the unending state of emergency, we should not forget that there is a legitimate need for short-term emergencies, local emergencies, for governors, executive officers to act unilaterally and decisively. But at the same time, that shouldn't extend to long-term emergencies, which the side effects are going to last longer. And instead of looking at quick rule changes or the legislature bypassing the Constitution and telling the governor to go in and snip and clip on the statutes, the governor should, the legislature needs to step up and be a partner with the governor in making the necessary long-term or temporary changes in the statute that are needed to address something like a pandemic or any other slow-moving long-term emergency, while still leaving the governor the authority to evacuate and respond to emergencies like the flood along the Kennebec back in the 80s, or the ice storm of the 90s, and not hamper that immediate responsibility. So I would ask that when you look at these, you look at these bills with an eye towards actually examining your role in helping the governor, being a partner with the governor in governing California, or not California, sorry, governing Maine through an emergency. Sorry, my job, I've been working on some California stuff lately. Wrong state, right pandemic, wrong state. And I am not attacking the governor. I think that that Governor Mills has done the best she can do and has been able to do, but at times her dedicated focus has worked against her. And her sense that she has to make decisions herself work against her. I'd point out that one of her executive orders, I think it's Executive Order 27, around the middle of February, she decided that rather than ask the legislature to go in and modify the sunset for some of the provisions in the pandemic emergency law, chapter 617, I think it is, that sunset in mid-January regarding school attendance, she just issued an executive order saying, oh, well, we're suspending the sunset date. And I'm really surprised. 30 seconds? Yeah.
Yeah, 30 seconds.
Okay. I'm astonished that the leadership of the legislature isn't addressing that insult to the legislative authority of the legislature, that a governor with no time pressure can come in and just decide she's going to rewrite the laws. And I'm going to wrap it up on that with just the last thought that this also does require that the legislature not be afraid to tell the governor it's time to hit the pause button and let's have a sanity check on what you're asking us to do, because that is part of your responsibility. And with that, I yield. And if anybody has any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Clardy? Seeing none, do we have any other speakers, Cheryl?
We do not.
Okay. I'm gonna have to step off and I'll let Representative Matlack.
Oh, wait, yes, I lied.
Okay, well, I'm gonna let Representative Matlack take over in a second because I have to step off, but I want to take a moment because I know there's been a lot of testimony. So I really want to put some public comments of my own on the record for this hearing. One is that this is a great exercise in democracy because we are all here together as Democrats, Republicans, Independents, talking about how best to serve our government. And I honestly say that because that itself, being part of the process, is a success. Second, I want to say that the governor has done an excellent job of protecting the public health and working to protect the economy. And the legislature has tools in place to deal with it. However, I'm looking forward to a work session where we can examine the elements of each of these bills, because as has been testified, we have to look at all circumstances. But I think Mr. Clardy's comments were the most cogent in the fact that we should not be fighting the last war. I agree. We had an election in November. The legislature voted on whether to terminate just a couple weeks ago. So I do agree the legislature needs to more fully assert its role, but that's not an issue with the governor. So I do consider just this committee process a success by working out or having this discussion, and we will have a work session and we will go over all the bills. So I consider this part of our success as a democracy, and I look forward to working with everybody. And with that, I will step off and turn it over to Representative Matlack. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Ms. Trundy. I believe you are our final speaker for this afternoon.
Good afternoon. My apologies for being a little bit tardy. I've been back and forth between several different public hearings this morning, and it is a challenge to juggle them all. So Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlack, and honorable members of the Joint Standing Committee on State and Local Government. My name is Anya Trundy. I am the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Administrative and Financial Services. And I come before you this afternoon to provide testimony in opposition to LD 729, an act to provide transparency regarding state contracts during a state of emergency. Certainly not opposed to transparency, but the Division of Procurement Services annually reviews and approves over 5,000 contracts for services for departments in the executive and judicial branches of state government. And regardless of whether a state of emergency is in effect or not, the Division of Procurement Services publishes and makes publicly available all contracts, including the complete terms and text of each contract on the division's website. From the Division of Procurement Services website, anyone can easily search contracts going back to January 1st, 2013 by contract number, department, vendor, amount, and date. In addition, a sortable listing of state master agreements under which purchases are made is also available on the Division of Procurement Services website. If a user has difficulty locating the contract they are looking for, division staff will be happy to assist them. This bill is superfluous given the Division of Procurement Services' existing full commitment to public accountability and considerable investment of staff time to maintaining complete transparency on their website. Thank you for allowing me to testify before you today. I'm happy to respond to any questions you might have at this time, and we will be available to you at the work session as well.
Thank you very much. Are there questions for Ms. Trundy? There being none, thank you very much for joining us. This is our last speaker. We have completed our bills for today. We have nothing else to discuss this afternoon. Lynn?
Only if you want to do a couple language reviews. That's the committee's discretion. I have 2 amendments that you could look over if you so choose.
Okay, shall we declare the public hearings closed then, and we'll move on to language review? May I have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Thank you very much. We have closed our public hearings for the day. I appreciate all your patience and your abilities to hear all of the people who wanted to come and speak with us today. Lynn, language review this afternoon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the first bill I'm going to bring before you is LD 584. 584, I'm going to make sure. This is the bill, the commission to study the reduction of unfunded and outdated municipal mandates. And the committee voted to, let me share my screen so you can see what I drafted for you. The committee voted to add in language that this commission could meet either in person or by electronic means. The committee voted that the report must prioritize the mandates to be revised or eliminated. And then on the second page, at the very bottom, in very poor handwriting, is that the committee may report out legislation based on the report. So, so that's that language review. I think it is, it was an ought to pass as amended. Am I looking at the right one? Except for one ought not to pass vote. So if this looks good, I will stop screen sharing this one and get ready to screen share the second one, which is 564, which you may want me to send to you.
Okay.
Just because it's a whole new bill. So 564 was the act to save money by eliminating the requirements on the annual report. And if you remember, what the committee decided to do was to scrap that bill and to require, and I've highlighted the main bulk of what you want to know about, that the state librarian and the state archivist shall work together to study the potential cost savings that may be achieved by reducing or eliminating the requirements and statutes and regulations that regularly produced reports and other publications be printed and distributed. I added that the goals of providing public access to the reports and the preservation for archival purposes, I heard that as a strong goal that the committee talked about. I added language that agencies and departments, that's section 2, are required to provide information to the archivist and the librarian upon request. And the information that they will be collecting is the number of reports that are required to be provided in print form, the number of copies that are required to be provided, the cost to print and distribute, and whether the reports and publications are available on the agency or department's website. I added in that the agencies, so this part right here, may provide an opinion, so this is optional, on whether the continued distribution of print copies of a particular report serves an important purpose. And then, of course, the committee wanted the report back by January 15th of next year. And the committee has the ability to report out legislation related to the report in the second regular of the 130th. So I believe I captured everything that the committee asked. But I want to make sure, because this was a clear, a complete rewrite on my part for you.
Right. Yes, I can see that. Because I believe the committee was looking to see whether or not it was necessary to still retain the publication of reports, which reports could be reduced, and how many we needed, and especially from the archivist of what is necessary for posterity to retain printed copies in a time when digital copies are not forever yet. So did anybody have any question for Lynn with regard to this? Lynn, you said you would be sending this around to us?
I thought you might want to have that, and then perhaps, and I see heads nodding, so I will send that immediately. I don't know how you want me to get comments back. I think the next time we meet is next Monday, so we could wait until then.
Okay. All right. Well, let's do that. Representative Toole?
And I would agree with that as well. I think this pretty much encompasses what the committee had agreed to. I think it's very well done. And I mean, if we're done with this topic, I would like to, I was so shocked that we get done our public hearing so early. I forgot to make requests for work sessions. So as soon as we're done with this, we can go back to that. That would be fantastic.
A work session for what?
The public hearings that we just had this morning. Just requests for information for Lynn.
Yeah, truly. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, that's fine. Were there any other questions with regard to this language review? And Lynn is going to send it around. There being none, now we can suggest to Lynn what information we will need for the the work sessions on the bills that we just heard. Representative Toole, you had some suggestions?
Yeah, I had some thoughts and suggestions. I know internally I have a skeleton chart of the various bills, but I think it would be great for the committee to have a committee document of the various bills for the work sessions. I also think we should have a history of the revisions to 37B and how that all started and how things have changed over the run of however many years it's been in existence. And I certainly, I would suggest that as well. And I believe, are we having the sponsors come back for the various bills, or how are we
I
working?
believe they will receive notification that we will be having a work session on their bills.
Because I've received a couple of text messages about people who would like to be present for the work session, realizing that we were trying to consume a lot of information and didn't really have questions today. So I know of a couple of sponsors that would like to come back, so if that's possible.
Cheryl, was that the way that you had intended? We had discussed notification of the sponsors?
Yes, they'll all get a link and an FYI when the work session is, and they can sign up at any time.
Okay.
All right, great. And I will be in touch offline about the couple that have reached out to me, so.
Okay, thank you.
But
I keep saying that there's another person who would like to make a comment, or is it just Representative Toole? Does anybody else have a request for information for work session on these bills? Which won't be for another 10 days or so. There being none, then I think we're all set. Thank you very much for your patience all day long. I really appreciate it. We will see you tomorrow in person over in Augusta. Okay, good afternoon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Lynn, are you here at the, whoop, I lost her. Bye, everybody.